Here's Matt Walsh with his theory on whether homosexuality is learned or if it's intrinsic in yourself. Feels like this debate is like stuck in a 2005 time capsule, but Matt Walsh is stuck in 1902, so that makes a little bit more sense for his standards. We're in a more modern conversation, but the conclusions that he draws are similarly hateful, or I guess in keeping with what the conclusions he draws, hateful once again.
Now, the argument from the other side, well, there is no argument, really. I mean, these people are just shameless, soulless, hypocritical con artists who will say whatever they need to say in any given situation. So you can't really use their own arguments against them, as I've just done, because their arguments are not real arguments. Nothing they say means anything. But to the extent that we can use a word like argument, the argument from the other side is that sexual orientation is immutable and unchangeable. We already talked about this yesterday. And first of all, there was never any reason to believe that. Okay, this idea that born gay or whatever. We know that a person's sexual preferences and tastes can absolutely be affected by all manner of things: trauma, abuse, exposure to pornography from a young age. Many things can impact a person's sexual preferences.
Can we just stop at that little insinuation there? So if you are basically gay or trans, it's because you've been abused or exposed to pornography, which is absolutely absurd. And what's interesting is like the sexuality parts of it, that comes later. Like in my glance of the literature, like 9 or 10. Mm-hmm. But like as far as like trans identity, like, and I feel like a girl or I feel like a boy, that often happens much younger, like 5, 6 ish, like Dwayne Wade's kid, famously. So that little insinuation there, like we're not really.
Well, can he reckon with the Catholic Church? Because I don't think that Matt Walsh wants to. He never talks about the Catholic Church's documented history of sexual abuse. But like, if he wants to make a claim that being homosexual is somehow a result of that, it's been pretty clear like what institution is most synonymous with the purveyors of that in modern thought. But anyway, but it's all stupid. And his claim of that the left thinks that sexuality is immutable and unchangeable is a complete straw man as well. Like, of course, someone's sexual identity is a very personal thing. And once we begin to remove layers of stigma that Matt Walsh is like desperately trying to put back on,
and like edicts and dogma,
then people are more open to exploring and seeing how they feel. Maybe I want to date a woman, maybe I want to date a trans man or something, and that is the society that we want to create so that you can figure it out yourself. But I would never say that that by like writ large, sexuality is immutable and unchangeable from birth, because it's entirely personal and context matters for everything. So he has to strawman the left's position on this in order to make some point. Either way, it's dumb, but here we go.
Affected by all manner of things: trauma, abuse, exposure to pornography.
Okay, sorry. Actually, pause it again. It can be affected by all manner of things, but notice how when he's talking about homosexuality, he only like uses negative things to say how that can affect you. So there's a natural state of being, and that's heterosexual in Matt Walsh's eyes. And the only way that you can divert from that path is if you're a victim of trauma, right? Because then that's unnatural. Here we go.
And tastes can absolutely be affected by all manner of things: trauma, abuse, exposure to pornography from a young age. Many things can impact a person's sexual preferences. I mean, this is not really disputed by any serious person. There is no gay gene, no matter how hard they look for one. And the idea that people are born gay has always been incoherent, because, if people are born gay, like born gay, you're gay from birth, right? That's what that would mean. And then that means that there are homosexual infants out there? Again, no sane person thinks that.
About to put my
So there's
siren
no
on.
reason why a person can't seek and receive successful counseling to overcome same-sex attraction.
Oh my God, conversion therapy. I guess that's what Matt was doing when he wanted to lower the age of consent and said that, 16-year-old girls should be, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but available to have sex with older men, because he wanted to, as not a predator at all, he would never be one, do the deconversion and making sure that they didn't get, access to certain materials that would turn them into the evil monster homosexual.
Look at all these straight babies.
Are babies born straight then?
Yeah.
But if it's only natural to be straight, and then trauma's what takes you on this other path,
Yeah.
then every baby's straight. But it's ridiculous that there's a homosexual baby.
Do you know that about 10% of rams refuse to mate with ewes, which are the female sheep, but do readily mate with other rams? And I wonder who showed those rams sheep pornography.
Yeah, he should probably look up homosexuality in the animal kingdom. That is...
What are their gay babies?
Yeah.
Let me look into that.
There are animals that engage in sexual acts with their same sex, and he just compartmentalizes that. But it also goes to show how you can see how the conservatives can't conceive of anybody's attraction to someone that they love in any way that isn't directly connected with just sex, straight up sex right there. Like, because when you talk to people who are gay, my I don't know why I'm telling the story, but my uncle passed away from AIDS before I was born, and my mom tells a story about how, like, she asked him, because it was not kosher at that time, he was having trouble coming out to the family, but he was passing away and it was becoming obvious. And she asked him, like, when did you know? And he was like, when I was 5 years old. I was 5 years old and I saw X movie star on TV. And that's very common when you talk to people. Not when they're babies. They don't come out and say, like, oh, I'm gay now. But when they start to have an understanding of gender and they consume culture and watch a movie and they might find someone handsome or pretty, that's
Basically,
when it starts to click.
Yeah, they aren't confined to a repressive culture that excludes any sort of thing like that from the sort of realm of ideas.
Right, and so it's so silly. And those 5-year-olds who are having that attraction to a man or a woman that's of their same gender on TV, they're not thinking about sex, but they are beginning to develop their attraction and understanding of that.
Yeah, and exactly, and I say, like, the things that I cursory looked over, there's like, this is like the first, like, we're learning how to even ask kids about this. But like anybody, I mean, I was obsessed with Catwoman from the Batman movies when I was like 5 or 6, and I didn't even know what sex was.
You didn't even know why, though.
It was like my imagination is, we're gonna roll around in these bed sheets, and that's gonna be like really great. I didn't know what sex was. I didn't know anything, but it's like I was obsessed with Catwoman.
Understood.
Can we watch a little bit from what we watched, where Walsh talks a little bit more about his thoughts on conversion therapy?
Sure. Go ahead.
Is trying to give electric shocks or even drugs. Okay. In almost every case, when we hear about so-called conversion therapy, it is a case where somebody with a same-sex attraction goes to a therapist or to a counselor to help them overcome that attraction. Like, they're looking for counseling, for therapy to help them overcome this attraction that is troubling them and that they don't want. They don't want to have the same-sex attraction, but they do, and they're looking for help. And why shouldn't people have the right to seek that kind of help if they want it? To use language that the left is familiar with, if somebody desires to be straight, then why shouldn't we affirm that desire?
We literally
Why
do.
should they receive affirmative care in that context? I mean,
What are
that's
you
their lived
talking about?
experience, right? That's
It's just
The real trans people are people that were torturing to not be gay.
Yeah,
right.
So Matt Walsh is basically asking the question: why isn't there sexuality affirming care for repressed gay people.
No. He needs to be affirmed constantly. Matt Walsh needs his sexuality to be affirmed. It's not enough for him, and it says a lot about him. It's not enough for him that culture does it on this daily effing basis, and that all religious institutions try to funnel people into the nuclear family with a man and a woman. It's not enough that that society basically makes it the most desirable from like a tax perspective, from a social acceptance perspective, to be, unfortunately, in that kind of heteronormative married relationship. Matt Walsh, for some reason, he needs more than that. His grip on his sexuality is so tenuous that, he needs a seminar every month about how to wear a flannel shirt and how to make sure that the accoutrement in my studio is as brown and bland as possible because colors are gay. Just little tips like that for him that he needs to affirm his sexuality.
I don't actually even call it conversion therapy. It's twice a week I go to what I call the sex chiropractor. He straightens me right out.
Bye-bye thoughts. Bye-bye thoughts.
I'm not even thinking about nothing like that anymore. I haven't thought about gay babies for 5 days.
Now off to the middle school.
Off on false pretenses to go talk at a school board meeting.